Hello, this is Trooper Joe, and I'm here from ArchAngel. Again, it's Wednesday from 3 to 4. We're going to be right here trying to entertain you and trying to bring a little bit of conversation to you. And you know, going to have to talk a little bit about the horrific thing that went on down in Orlando, Florida. You know, and the repercussions that are coming, and the I want to say exciting, but it's really not exciting if you're part of this system. But it's, I'll say crazy. the things that are happening now, they're saying that this guy was down inside the club picking up gay people. I don't think that was happening. I think he was actually doing a reconnaissance on his own to try to go down there and really put the hurt on people. And now that they're saying his wife's involved, and she had prior knowledge, which I'm not doubting. She probably did have prior knowledge, I would think so, if she's wife. This is a very bizarre situation. And this situation is fueled by many different ways. The conduit for fuel to run through there, there's a lot of different conduits coming in there. Fuel's coming from all over the place. This country, we got a presidential election going on where the people who are running for the president are really fueling all kinds of, not just racial hatred, but just hatred in general, just for their own entertainment. I think Trump's having a good time entertaining himself about all these different things that he says and the things that happen in the world. So that's crazy. And Hillary, she's just being Hillary. She's going to deny everything 2, 3, 4, 5 times and stuff, and she'll tell you right out flat, wasn't me, didn't do it. She's a seasoned politician in that area of doing that. The Republican Party itself is just making noises. Oh, I can't trust Trump. I'm not going to be with Trump. I'm not doing this. They're going to do whatever it takes to get them into the big chair and maintain the Congress and the Senate too, if they can. So we know that's going to happen. And who suffers? People in this country. You know, we'll be so fractured and so disjointed that we won't know what's going on. You'll be hating people that live in your house because they come from a different country and stuff. It's kind of sad. And then there's the gun lobby, which is going to be a big topic, always going to be a big topic, because the Second Amendment is an outdated amendment from my perspective in a lot of ways. I don't think anybody needs to have a gun. I don't see what you do with it. Guns are built for one thing and one thing only: shooting people. Or shooting something. That's all they can do. They can't do anything else. I said on another show, they can't cook popcorn. So, no good for me. So all this stuff is fueled by something I want to talk about today. It's called implicit bias. Alright? But first I want to tell you what explicit bias is. That reflects the attitudes or beliefs that one endorses, the result from subtle cognitive processes. That's an explicit bias. You actually make a choice in the biases that you seek. You know, if you don't like chocolate ice cream, that's an explicit bias. I don't like chocolate ice cream. Why? Because it's bad. I don't like it. Don't taste good. I like strawberry ice cream, or I like banana ice cream, or whatever it is like that. So an explicit bias is a cognitive process. And a cognitive process is something you thought about, you decided that you didn't like it. Alright? So with that said, keep that in mind throughout this whole beautiful kind of talk that we're having right here. Now, an implicit bias, that operates on a lower level below the conscious awareness. This is a bias that's in your subconscious. This is something that is without intentional control. This is an implicit bias. In most cases, you have no controls over your implicit biases. Actually, you may not even know that you have these biases. You know, you might be walking through your life all the time not knowing that you don't like chocolate ice cream. You know, or you don't like vanilla ice cream, or you don't like strawberry ice cream. You don't know, because it's an unconscious type of thing. You may never tasted ice cream, so you wouldn't know. You didn't, that, man, I hate this chocolate ice cream. This stuff is bad. You won't know why you did it. So implicit bias are completely inflexible, but they are malleable to some degree and manifest in ways that are responsive to the perceived notion and environment. So what that means, you say, what the hell does that mean? They're malleable and stuff. These implicit biases are brought about by the way you were raised in most cases. The first line person to give you to feed into these implicit biases that you create, remember these are unconscious biases, so is your parents. You know? Not only your parents, but your friends, and other influential things like that. You know, you might just form a bias about taking a bus because you always run out there and you're late for going to school and you missed the bus, so you're gonna blame it on the bus. You know, so I ain't taking no bus. Buses are no good and stuff like that. Your subconscious has created an implicit bias against buses because you're always late to get to bus. It was your fault, but your unconscious doesn't work that way. So implicit biases can develop over time with the accumulation of personal experiences. Like I said, you missed the bus every day because you decided that you wanted to watch the cartoon that ends when the bus comes instead of leaving early and go out there and get that bus to get to school. So you're always late for school, but it's your fault, but you blame it on the bus. You know, so that's an implicit bias. Your subconscious says, not my fault, it's the bus's fault. You know, the bus should have been a little bit later so I can take care of getting there on time. So then personal experiences come in two different forms. You got traditional learning. You know, that's learning between self and target, like school, like church, like, you know, other things like that. You learn how to cut wood. You know, you learn different things. You learn how to cook. You know, these are traditional learnings, you know. So, like you might learn how to make the favorite soup in your house and everything because your grandmother showed you how to pinch the salt and move your thumb across your index finger to put it into the soup. And so that's a traditional learning, you know. So that's the first part. That's the part that most people kind of just, that's to identify what they're learning. Well, I was taught how to do this. I was taught how to do that. I was shown how to do this. I was shown how to tie my shoes and stuff. So you use the double loop under and over type of method, you know. And then there's social learning. Social learnings are exposed to the implicit biases of their parents, friends, and others. You know, these are social experiences, social learning. They may develop a history of personal experiences that connect certain racial groups with facts, with fear, and negative effects. What that means, like, say you live in a household where they just continually talk about people in the negative. Anybody in the negative. It doesn't matter what racial group it is. It doesn't matter what their church affiliation is. It doesn't matter what they think they like to eat or anything like that. But in your house, this is all you hear. You hear these negatives all the time. The one thing it's going to do is going to set you up with an implicit bias that says, well, I don't like that racial group like that, you know. But the other thing that it's going to do is going to create a fear. You know, how come you don't like that racial group? The next thing you know, you become afraid of that group. You know, you put your own spin on this stuff, and we'll get into that a little bit later down the line. You know, so what I'm trying to bring across here is that you watch your parents as a kid. Everybody's done this here. So if your parents were from the old country of Italy and stuff, and they like to do things in a certain way, you develop those things, those actions to do things in a certain way. But you also develop all the negatives that they have. You develop all those biases that they had coming over. They may have come from a heavily grape like population that made a lot of different, I think they make what do you call, olive oil or something like that. So they have a lot of different, so they don't like the people down the road who are cattle owners who like to sneak in there with their cattle and let them eat all the olives or something like that. So you form this bias against cattle owners, you know, because your parents would call them all kinds of negative names. It might be justified. I'm not saying that the names themselves may not be justified, but what I'm saying is you just pick up on the negatives. So now the next thing your mind's going to do is going to put these things into a fear factor for you. Yeah, and then so now not only don't you like the cattle, you're afraid of the cattle. So here's an example. Whites who've been shown a lot of implicit bias react highly to the image of unfamiliar black faces with strong amygdala activities. Now this is what the amygdala does, or what it is. The amygdala, a region in the brain that scientists has associated with emotional learning and fear and conditioning. That's an amygdala. So it works in conjunction with serotonin and other type of these emotional and fear, but it has a fear factor that's heavily related to the amygdala, a little almond-shaped thing within your brain. So these white people are showing a lot of images of unfamiliar black faces. The amygdala acts upon those pictures with emotional learning. That emotional learning manifests itself in fear and condition. So it doesn't have to be spelled out too much. Those white people who are exposed to those black faces, of unfamiliar black faces, begin to develop a fear against black people. And the fear, they might not even know they have the fear. You know? They might all their lives think, I have no prejudices against black people and stuff. But actually, it's never manifested itself because it's never been brought forward. So their prejudices that were just hidden under this implicit bias because of the way they were raised or shown, someday might manifest itself in a negative way. This almost seems to be what's going on with this person who killed all those people in Orlando and stuff. According to the first reports, where he saw two homosexual men kissing, and he just reacted in a total negative type of way to this here. I got to do something about this. This is terrible. They did this in front of my kid, and my kid's going to grow up and be disturbed because this thing happened. So he took it upon himself that he was going to do what he did. But that's an implicit bias. Somewhere along the line, he was exposed to some kind of radicalization. I don't know if it's Islam radicalization, homophobic radicalization, whatever it is. He got radicalized implicitly to react in a fearful manner to the actions of gay people kissing and stuff. And that set him off. That's exactly what his father said. He was all right till he saw that, then he went a little bit crazy. Actually, he went a lot of crazy. he gave crazy a whole new meaning. You know, so I mean, that's some of the power of implicit bias and stuff. Now he may have went through his whole life and always had these internal prejudices, but they never manifested themselves because he could have went through his whole life and never seen people acting in what he would consider a way that was sinful and hurtful, directed at him, you know, and his loved ones. So that's a form of implicit bias. Yeah. And you know, in the news now, it's looking at his wife. Now her thing, her actions and stuff like that, I don't think they're implicit. I think they'd be more traditional in a social way. She tried to, from what I hear or hearing, she tried to stop her husband, but she drove him down there a couple of times and, you know, tried to talk him out of doing evil things. So she had prior knowledge. But that wasn't implicit. That knowledge was in her head from social experiences, and she chose. So they were traditional. Right? So let me see. Other research had demonstrated a cause relationship between the experiences of certain type of emotions and the emergence of implicit bias, showing that inducing people to experiences anger and disgust can create implicit biases against newly encountered groups. See, this is what's happening in this country right now. Right here, the types of emotions and the emergence of implicit bias, showing that inducing people to experiences anger or disgust can create implicit biases against newly encountered groups. This is almost a true Trump doctrine and stuff. He's showing anger and disgust in the way he talks about the Muslims, the way he talks about the Mexicans, the way he talks about anybody actually. He's pretty rude in his comments and stuff. But what it's doing is it's heightening and it's setting in motion those implicit biases that people may have had that were, you know, really subdued by their subconscious and may never manifest themselves, or they may manifest themselves. But there's an anger and disgust. And those two emotions here are the powerful emotions that can bring about a whole lot of craziness and stuff. Because remember, this guy who went on the shooting spree, what's his name, Omar? Mm-hmm. Omar, who went on this shooting spree, he was angry and he was disgusted. Those two highly inflammable emotions together, this is always a duality when things happen, is what can spark these implicit biases, these subconscious biases that you may not even know exist, to surface, and they can come in a really crazy way. We got Will in the house. 5 o'clock shadow.
Hey. His name is Omar Mateen, Mateen. And his wife may be charged. His wife, Noor Salam Mateen, helped him buy ammunition, reportedly.
Oh.
So she may be charged, even though she did not carry out the attack. She helped him obtain ammunition. But I think they need more proof or evidence to charge her, because he was legally able to buy ammunition.
Oh, well, she's probably going to have to pay some kind of consequences for her actions, her prior knowledge and stuff. But she was the wife. You know, you don't know again what was in her mind to do these things. Maybe if I buy the ammunition and keep talking to my husband and keep trying to talk him out of it, and I'm showing that I love him and that he's good like this, he won't act crazy. You know, that could have been her mindset. I don't know. That psychology of the brain is crazy. You know, like this amygdala, it works off of fear. She could have been scared of losing her husband, that he was going to leave her, because this was his second wife. Don't know. I don't know what was in her mind to make her go and do things like that. But something was there. Something was there. So I'm going to get back a little bit to this anger and disgust and Donald Trump. I mean, you can, it's Donald Trump is playing the game like a comedian on TV and stuff. He's having a ball. He hasn't changed the way he talks, even though now he's the one running for president. He's not running to be the one running for president. He's the one running for president. Rather than change the way that he addresses the public, and now not only does he have to address just the Republicans, he has to address everybody. He's still targeting the same audience that got him in the position that he's at. You know, it's like you already got those people. You know, and that's it. So rather than show a little bit of sophistication, a little bit of a swagger that can make other people come to his camp, he chooses to stay with the same kind of rhetoric that he's been using all along, which generates anger and disgust against certain groups of people. In this case, he's capitalizing on the Muslim faith. This guy's his reactions, from what I can say, it ain't anything to do with religion. It doesn't have anything to do with anything except someplace in his history, in his subconscious, he was disgusted and angered at the actions of our homosexuals. You know? Didn't mean that he hated homosexuals. He was angered at the actions of the homosexuals. Because until he witnessed that, and it was in front of his son, did he become mad, you know, and angry and wanted to go and kill everybody like that in the street. But Donald Trump is attacking these people and showing anger and disgust to generate votes and stuff, and he's going to keep that going. And it's impossible, I think, to really know whether that kind of strategy is going to work, because the implicit biases are in your subconscious. And if you live in a household that's always talking negative about some other people or some other race or the way somebody cooks a turkey or whatever it might be, those words are going to run into an implicit type bias. Alright? I'm going to play a little song. How do I play a song? I can't see them. Bulls. Can't hear them either. On laptop. Everybody wanna live forever. You know it. You know it. That's a cultural implicit bias right there. That's why I played that song. Everybody in every social gathering in every society on the world wants to live forever, and every boy want to be bigger than dad, and every girl want to be more beautiful than mom. You know, these are stereotype implicit biases. You know, and the cultures are full of them. You know, we got all kinds of cultural stereotype implicit biases. Even a person who does not necessarily endorse the cultural stereotype still has those same cultural stereotypes. So just like with the song, there's men out there say, oh man, that's whack song and that's stupid and everything. But you let them get in front of a mirror and they want to be bigger than, nobody going to be bigger than they are. And they want to be bigger than dad, you know. These implicit biases, they just kind of fly all over the place. Yeah. And even though they may not be wanted or endorsed, still produce unconscious attitudes because of the potential to influence perception, judgment, and actions. So if you're looking at the cultural biases that are negative, you know, the racial hatred, the homosexual fears, the hatred of women, any kind of hatred, the hatred of chocolate ice cream or with vanilla and strawberries on top. Whatever that hatred may be, even though you don't want it, you know, or you don't endorse it, you still unconsciously may be in favor of these things when something happens to trigger that implicit bias within your amygdala, you know. When that fear kind of sets in, you might be influenced by the perception and the judgment and actions that this creates, you know. Like Omar, you know, it seemed like he was influenced by this. Although, you know, his culture, he was starting to go crazy. I don't know if it was after or before. He was just talking about all kinds of goofy, stupid stuff like that there. But he had morphed into another culture that he endorsed. But he's too crazy to bring up, you know, really. But in other cultures, just the racial hatred that we see in normal, everyday life and stuff. You know, like I said, a lot of people go through life and they firmly believe within their psyche and within every bone, in every joint, in every part of their fiber, every cell of their fiber, that I have no racial biases and stuff. I live in a culture where we see harmony and everything and everybody's the same. And that might not be true. It may be true until something triggers something triggers an implicit bias. If they come from a household where that implicit bias was already generated. And again, these racial implicit biases aren't directed towards color. You know, don't that's the part you gotta leave out. It's not really that simple. It ain't black on white. It might be just take England and Ireland. You know, the Irish and the English. You know, when I was in the service, I actually was training with the English one time. We were on a training exercise together. And one of the guys, English guy, said he could not wait to get back to Ireland, for he may have England, because he may have an opportunity to encounter an Irish person and you know, shoot him or whatever he was going to do. And I'm like, y'all look alike. You know, because my understanding of racial biases was black on white. His understanding of racial biases was based on religion. You know, did the Irish Catholic and the English or whatever they were basing their hatred on. But from my perspective, y'all look alike. Y'all related? What, he didn't bring you a Christmas present or something? I don't know. But as far as but for him, it was seriously an implicit bias that had surfaced to the top. And that probably was because of the culture that he was in. He was in the English military, and they were assigned, you know, to bring down the Irish rebellion that was going on in Belfast and stuff. So they had made those people like that. So if I say racial bias, I'm not just talking the American version of racial bias, white on some form of color. I'm talking racial bias in its true natural manifestation. You know, it could be, like I said, English or an Irish, and they all look alike. It could be the Sicilians on the main coast, the main coast Italians. It doesn't have to matter. It could be the Zulu in southern Africa on the people from Ghana in the west. The colors is irrelevant and stuff. So yeah. So people tend to possess consistent and strongly positive attitudes towards themselves. It's a whole different thing now. You know? People like themselves. People talk about themselves. So people say, what I believe is true. And this positive attribute about self can transfer very easily to other things, people, groups, and they share attributes with themselves. So what that's really saying is, I like me, so me liking me, then, well, I like Will, he's alright, so Will got to be good.
That's right.
Will's good, because I like Will, and, you know, I'm me. You know, and that's how that works. So, and this is like a Donald Trump type of thing. So, Donald Trump likes Donald Trump. Obviously, he names everything, every material thing on the planet after himself. I'm not surprised that he don't have all his kids and wives wearing Donald Trump's t-shirts, but he got to wear hats or something like that. I don't know. Donald Trump likes Donald Trump. So everything that Donald Trump likes has to be good according to Donald Trump, and everybody else should follow suit and like that. You know, it's an implicit egotism. You know, that's what people demonstrate a bias, preference for new products that resemble their own name. That's Donald Trump. You know, he's got a bias even bigger than things that resemble their own name. I'm going to explain that a little bit in a minute about this resembles their own name, because I just want to finish bringing up Donald Trump here a little bit. Now, because Donald Trump, he makes things to resemble his name. Trump Tower, Trump University, Trump airplanes, Trump helicopters, Trump suits, Trump casinos. Anything he can put his name on, he puts his name on it. Steaks, whatever it is. And you know, people do that too. Some people put their name on it and they identify with different type of schools. You know? You know, everybody, oh, this is my alma mater, this is my school and stuff. So what happens with this kind of implicit egotism is then, this is crazy, because this is what happens with this type of egotism. Say a person was born on February 2nd. That person may choose to live his life out in a city called Two Rivers because of the being born on the 2nd. And this is how these type of identification things, you know, this is how they work. People also choose careers and marry others whose name resembles their own. You know? Fundamental attitudes towards self may underline implicit racial biases by facilitating a general tendency to prefer one's in-group, a group with which one identifies in some way, over an out-group, any group with which one does not affiliate. Alright, so this is these biases, like I said. So we'll go back to the example. We don't have to go all the way back to Donald Trump and his piece. So if somebody was born, say February 2nd, they may choose to live their lives in a town called Two Rivers because they identify with being born on the 2nd. And somebody may marry a woman whose name just might sound like your name. You know, your name might be Joseph, you may marry Josephine, or you may marry something to that effect. You might be Will, you might marry a Wilhelmina, or something like that. You might be born in October, so you might marry a woman that's born in October. You'll find some similarity to make your relationship bigger than what it is based upon that relationship. But this is a subconscious type of thing that goes about. Huh? So your subconscious really plays a heavy thing when it comes to defining who you are. You know? So I believe if you look at a lot of people, you'll find that they're pretty closely, their birthdays are pretty close together between the man and the woman. Or they'll find something else that really comes about where each one of them has identified that same trait, that same connection within the other person. so that they can have a good life. Oh, there we are. Right. I mean, this stuff goes on all the time. Yeah, and I mean, you go take philosophy classes and things like that, or you go any other class, and they start talking about in groups and out groups and stuff. So with biases towards one another, you may say, I'm only hanging out, and you don't say it, it's a subconscious thing. You end up hanging out, well, I'm going out tonight, yeah, where you going? Well, I'm going to go to the club and everything. Next thing you go to the club, and the bartender's got 5 Miller Lights on the board. You come in with your 5 friends. He knows that you're going to all drink Miller Lite because one person in your group, the leader, likes Miller Lite. So everybody associates with the leader in that group. That's the common denominator. Then the in-group, so everybody's drinking a Miller Lite. Somebody might like a Bud, but they ain't getting a Bud today, But there are outliers who's on the outside who don't drink it all, and they got their own special status, and they can identify in a lot of other ways. But you'll see a tendency where a lot of people, when they go out, they seem to have to say the menus, the look at the tables. There'll be 3 or 4 dishes of the same stuff on the table, because that close social identification, and that when it comes to a racial bias, it's really hurtful. This is what really starts to really bring about a lot of pain and anguish and just downright out nastiness in the world when these things are applied racially. That subconscious thing, people don't even know why they're doing it. But why you hate him? I don't know. I don't know why I hate him or her. Of course I hate her. Why? I'll find some reason, because. How about that one? That a good reason? Yeah, that's because. Can you spell that? No, I can't spell it, but that's why I hate them. I hate them. I don't really hate them. And that's just that social illicit racial bias that just comes about from an in-group versus an out-group, and that social connection. So like this here. People believe that if I am good, which is, of course, natural, and I am X, then X is also good. So, that's how they justify all these type of racial hatreds. Some people believe that, I'm really a good person. So what I believe is good. I believe that those people over there, they're not good people like me, because they don't look like me, they don't smell like me, they don't eat chicken like I do, they don't do whatever it is and they weren't born on the second. So they're not good like me because I'm good. And they're X, so they're not X. And X is good because I like X, because I'm good. So that's how they get to have all these nice racial hatred things going on and stuff. Now, you put all your little kitties away and everything, because I'm going to play this song here. It ain't got any real swearing in it or anything. It's kind of it's an alright song. It's kind of funny. I like it anyway, but I'm gonna play this song for everybody. Do I have to hold this to play it? Okay, how I do this with my warrior song. And the person talking there was George C. Scott in the picture Patton, during the Battle of the Bulge. This is his motivational speech to get everybody fired up. That's a great song. But that's also a great illustration of what goes on when you have these kind of social and implicit biases that you don't know anything about. Because I'm sure there's a whole lot of people out there that have been listening to that song right now. They're going outside and they're just going to put a hurt on somebody. Because this type of thing makes. This is what this country. This talked about all of it. There was a song for the country to motivate soldiers to go out there and kill somebody else, and they denigrated them them people just by calling them dirty, them some of bitches, and then they're not just gonna kill them, they're gonna cut their guts out and they're gonna grease the wheels of their tanks. They're gonna murder them, you know. So this here, you keep hearing these things like this, and the rhythm was upbeat and lively and had a nice kind of marching type of tempo that implicitly we know all about because our parents grew up with that kind of music, with the marching bands and this and this. All this here points directly towards patriotism, even though it's the craziest patriotism on the planet. You know, there ain't nothing nice about it. They're gonna kill people. They're gonna kill them. They're gonna kill them 2, 3, 4, 5 times if they can. And not only kill them, just like he said, they're going to mutilate them and they're going to use their guts for because they need to have grease. So you can see a little bit where an implicit bias, you know, it can sneak up on you because it is subconscious. But how it's generated through today's media, through today's everything, you know, whatever it might be, but it relates back to a generation prior to yours, not just your parents' generation, but their parents' generation. All those things like that come from before 1945, before World War II. Those things came right after World War I. So, you know, with the marching bands and all that. And this song and that speech was a motivational speech that was able to fire up the whole army against another army during the Battle of the Bulge. You know, and his fiery rhetoric talk about, now you some of bitches, you know how I feel. You know, everybody was knowing how he felt, and everybody wanted to be just like Patton. And, you know, so that was General Patton, yes sir. An American hero. Till this day, he's still an American hero. And this I thought was very powerful. So that's why I played that song. And I like the song. I think it's the craziest song I ever heard. It's just a lot of fun. If you want it to be fun, it could be a lot of other stuff too. So let me get back to this here. You know, just a little bit on this bias with this example here. This is an example. This, you know, if a picture of a black face is followed by the words good or bad, then after time, your implicit stereotype, which is your implicit bias, about blacks will be biased upon the word bad that follows the black face. So in many instances, right, the word bad will be associated with black, especially where other implicit biases come into play. So, you know, remember now, these biases are subconscious. You don't even know they exist until they really manifest themselves. So these are just things. So a black person would be seen as a bad person. Yeah? The same implicit bias works on anything. If the word following, say, white was bad, then for many, white would be bad. Yeah? But it doesn't, it won't, and the black and white face and stuff like that, I guess the example works the best because it's the majority of the country is white. So, you know, the people seeing their own self in the mirror subconsciously, they're not going to say, well, I'm bad, because like we said back here, you know, people believe, you know, that they're the best, you know. So, you know, I'm good, so I can't be bad. They already have that subconscious going on like that, you know. I'm good, so therefore I can't be bad. But they had that example with the black, with the black doll and stuff like that. That was because I would believe that the black was associated, followed by the word bad. So these little kids who when asked to pick which is the good doll and which is the bad doll, the word bad followed black. So they had an implicit stereotype bias to pick the black doll as the bad doll. I don't think it was they picked the black doll as a person, or the black doll as a culture, or the black doll in anything like that. I don't know. They were kind of young to do that type of thing. But it seemed like black was followed by the word bad, so their implicit bias went in there, and they chose the black doll to be bad. I understand that in that experiment that some kids even cried, because black might have been such a fearful type of thing, like we said earlier, that the fear, and I'll have to go through my notes, anger and fear and disgust associated with some implicit biases just manifested itself more strongly than anything else. And then you couple that with the word that followed black, which was bad. So the kids got all kinds of confused and stuff. So what I like to say to all the people out there is that, watch yourselves when you're raising your kids. Watch yourselves when you're thinking about yourself and everything, so that these implicit biases, these implicit stereotypes, these unknown factors that you really don't know, if they show themselves, identify them as quickly as you can and then stifle them. Don't be listening to rhetoric such as Donald Trump's putting out there with craziness about Muslims and Mexicans and other minority groups and stuff like that, or homosexuals or any of these things like that. They don't exist. They're biases that were generated from something else somewhere long, long, long ago. And just like in the Warrior song, you can follow behind somebody else's biases just because they put it out there in a powerful way, so you start to identify with their power and stuff, and that's also an implicit look at things like that. So I would say, all you people out there, you just have a great day, and remember, this is about chivalry. So if you really want to get an implicit bias, because there's implicit bias that also run to the good, go out there and just smile and be good towards people. So, those type of biases that come up, you'll start seeing people as people, and you'll start seeing people as being very kind, considerate, loving, and caring. And you'll see people as something that gives you an opportunity to put your best foot forward and do something nice for somebody like that. I'm playing another song and then I'm out of here. How do I do this?
Mic off.
Mic.